Do you know what the best news is? Nope, it's not no news, it's your news. That's why I'm playing New Angular Soul. I sincerely believe it's a pretty strong deck, at least tier 1.5 in my opinion. With some tweaks, it might even be one of the strongest fast advanced archetypes around. So, I'm playing up against Chaos Theory, so I'm going to play Sansan City Grid, followed by a News Hound on R&D. A pretty standard opening. Yeah, I'm hoping that he's not running Siphon, but that's a very old Chaos Theory tactic. So now he plays SMC, takes 2 credits and sacks it for Magnum Opus. So this tells you a lot about his deck. Firstly, it's a slow deck. But, I mean, it's not very slow in the sense that once he's completely set up, and you can be sure he sets up pretty fast with a first turn Opus, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So I immediately get an Astro Script out while I still can, because I know that once we get into the mid game when he sets up all his breakers, I'm not going to be able to contest him. But before that, it's going to be pretty much a walkover for me. If I can score another agenda behind a single piece of ice, I'm going to look good. But where's my ice? I don't find any ice. So this is going to be troubling. And to make things worse, he has Astrolabe out. So playing horizontally might not be a good idea. Hence why I did not play the team sponsorship earlier on. Also, he's playing around my Sweet Sweet. Notice that he's keeping so few cards in hand. He's just loading everything on Personal Workshop. This is not going to be good for me. I draw into even more horizontal assets and upgrades, so there's no question here. I have to give him the draw. I'm going to install Sansan City Grid, another one. Hopefully I can force him to trash it. Magnum Opus economy is very strong, never underestimate it. And here I install a team sponsorship in case I find a 15 minutes to score. So I basically gave him 2 free draws right here. Not the best of things to do. Can't really help it, given my draws. Now he does liberate the Data Sucker out. And at this point, you notice that I do not have a current out yet. That's okay, that's perfectly fine. If anything, I'm not going to settle for the long game with paywall implementation to drag the game out to gain me lots of credits. I need to rush out here. As with a lot of runner decks, to be honest. So here, a paywall would have really helped because now he's checking every single one of my remotes. He can and should do so because he has Astrolabe out, so the click cost of checking my remotes is mitigated by the fact that I'm drawing free cards for him, which he probably greatly appreciates. Here I draw into even more assets. What am I to do? What would you do in this situation? He has only 3 cards, so you can't really play Sweet Sweet. So what I do here is to install 2 new remotes to force him to draw 2 more cards. He goes up to 5, allowing me to play Sweet Sweet for a respectable 4 credits. This is pretty important. I actually wanted to save my Sweet Sweet to get 6 or 7 credits from Astrolabe, so waiting for the moment where he ends his turn with 5 cards in hand. I decided to go for it right away because I want to be able to score the build in my hand straight onto the Sansan City Grid in the remote. This is very important because by rushing out right now, I can get to match point quicker, and that's pretty important. So here you place an SMC, and I'm about to score the build in my hand. Except that I can't because I res the pet campaign, bringing me down to 7 credits. But I can do so next turn. And that's what I'm planning to do right now. I know the News Hound is pretty porous, but he's not running my R&D. He needs to set up. He needs to find his entire rig. So he cannot afford to run my R&D, which is pretty good because I don't really want to res News Hound at this point in time. And he's not getting any excesses of my centrals at all. Now I have 9 credits, I can score the build, so I go ahead and do so. Place it on the Sansan, single advance, beat up. Here comes the Clot. I definitely anticipated that. With SMC on the board, you have to expect that. And it comes as no surprise that the Clot is going to hit the table. Of course, I'm well prepared for that. By now, I've drawn into lots of ice and I'm able to defend the build. Looking at his Personal Workshop, I know that he has no answer for my wraparound just yet. And once he sacks his SMC for Clot, I will be able to, he will not have any tutors for his dog or corroder or whatever barrier breaker he uses. So that's a pretty key moment right here. He gets the Clot out and I defend the build with the wraparound. Does he have an answer to that? Likely not. Looking at his credit pool, he's going to be hard pressed to find a way into my remote without a barrier breaker and a stim hack in hand. he would literally have to hit Magnum Opus, install Barrier Breaker, and Stim Hack into my remote to have a chance of getting my agenda. Instead, what he does here is to chalk up Data Sucker tokens, host a Parasite on Personal Workshop, and pray that my ice is 2 strength or less, which isn't the case. You know it's wrapped around. He was hoping it was an Enigma, which is fair point, but he's not going to get in. So I'm going to get a freebie. And best thing is, because this is a build, not just any other agenda, I'm going to triple advance it and use the Astro token to get 5 agenda points to his 0. So this actually worked out better for me than fast advancing the build right off. Fast advancing the build would have only brought me up to 4 points. This gives me 5 points. I lose the Astro token, but that is of no consequence because I have a Biotic Label in hand. This is why Astrobiotics is so powerful. My opponent is able to deny all the sensitivity grids on my board. It doesn't matter. He cannot deny my Biotic Label. Once I find a Cyberdex Virus Suite, I basically win the game. So that is the very powerful aspect of Astrobiotics in general, and why it is so favored by competitive players. Here I draw into Cerebrostatic. I'm back to playing Cerebrostatic, and it's not very useful against this Chaos Theory deck, so I'm just going to leave it. Here I'm going to basically force him out of his comfort zone. Instead of allowing him to draw cards, gain money with Magnum Opus, I'm going to force him to make a run on this server by feigning an Astro Script in the remote when it's only a Jackson. Force his Barrier Breaker out, force him to come in and make an unprofitable run, wasting his time, hopefully buying time for me to get more money so I can Astrobiotic to victory. So he plays an SMC, gains some money, runs into my remote, he has to check it, and the bad news, he has no money to trash the Jackson. So I get to use it for the next turn, and you bet I will. But now with Clot in play, it's gonna be a slightly tad bit more difficult to score my Astro for the win. So I'm just going to draw with Jackson here while I ponder over my next course of action. I'm going to dump the Explodapalooza, no point keeping that. Gain a couple credits to put myself in, to slowly get myself into Biotic range. That's pretty important. Oh, another thing. I think most of you will have noticed this by now, but what I should have done when I scored the build was to rest team sponsorship. That is something I need to talk about. I should have rested team sponsorship. If I remembered to do that, I would have fetched the Cyberdex Virus Suite from my heap. This will allow me to get rid of his Clot. I really should have done that. I completely forgot. This is the whole point of including team sponsorship in your deck. It is such powerful anti-Clot tech. Because when you score an agenda, you sack a Cyberdex Virus Suite to kill that Clot, and you score your agenda, you can fetch the Cyberdex Virus Suite you just trashed to deter any further Clots, which is amazing. So that's exactly what I missed out on. So the only other recourse I have, now that I don't have a Cyberdex Virus Suite with me, is to purge virus counters manually. In the meantime, he does get a Utopia shard up, and he runs my R&D at long last. Here I reshuffle with Jackson Howard because I do not intend to res Newshound here. He accesses one card. There's not much point in resing Newshound because, well, it doesn't have an end the run subroutine. I don't have a current in play. So he continues drawing. Notice that most of his rig is out by now, but he is forced to destroy it because he needs to keep the Clot in play. He has to respect the threat of Astrobiotics, which I would perform the next turn if he doesn't keep Clot in play. So, what do I do here? His Data Sucker is gone, which is good news. I would purge virus counters here, but I decide to solidify my economy because he might draw into a Clone Chip next turn, and Clone Chip basically kills any notion of fast advance if I don't have a Cyberdex Virus Suite with me. So I'm just going to build up for the long game. Because I have a Toll Booth in hand, I can install the Toll Booth on R&D if I'm forced to go to the long game. So now he runs R&D with an R&D eye out. I'm not going to let him access 2 cards for free. I'm going to rest Newshound and force the Trace, which is pretty nice. He cannot float text because his personal workshop's loaded. So Trace fires, and he's forced to beat it. But surprisingly, he decides not to beat the Trace. Instead, he's going to spend his last click to clear the tag. Alright, so the good news is he still hasn't drawn into any Clone Chips, and that's really huge. You really need Clone Chip to support Clot, because otherwise I can just keep purging turn after turn manually, and eventually you will run out of options, run out of scavengers basically. Whereas with Clot, with Clone Chip on the table and Clot in the heap, I can't do anything about that. I can't manually purge virus counters to purge the clone chip. I need to force the clone chip out by installing an agenda to bait him. So, as I was mentioned, he accesses R&D, he finds a Palooza, and that gives me a lot of credits. Enough to install the toll booth on R&D to deter future runs. But I know this is not going to be a long-term solution. Put it simply, he has a torch waiting for me. Toll booth will cost 5 to pass through. That is the cheap, considering that he has an Opus out. He can click 6 and run my toll booth every turn. Again, this is why you need to rush out against such big rig decks. So to rush out, my only solution is to purge virus counters. And that's exactly what I do here. Trashing the Sweet Sweet because he obviously doesn't want to keep a lot of cards in hand. He's playing around Sweet Sweet, good for him. This is a very good play by him. By keeping so few cards in hand, he deactivates Sweet Sweet, making it very hard for me to gain money without the use of assets. Luckily, I do have a marked account ticking. And basically, he's on a ticking time bomb now. He has 3 clicks to win. He doesn't find a clone chip. He still doesn't find a clone chip. 2 more clicks left. What does he do? Here he makes a genius play that I want all of you to watch. He runs my HQ. He knows there's an agenda in there. He trashes it with Utopia Shard and accesses another card to ensure it is basically a mini legwork at this point to make sure, to sweep my hand, make sure that I don't have any agendas. There's no point in him running archives right now. As you notice, he can steal the Astro, but that is of no consequence. I mean, if he doesn't steal it, I'll Jackson the Astro back, that's fine. Next turn, I'll install Jackson. The point is, he needed to run R&D here to prevent me from finding an agenda, and he didn't. Unluckily for him, he killed my Biotic Labor, which was amazing, but he forgot to run R&D. He needed to run R&D to kill any chance of me finding the agenda. That was a small little oversight that cost him the game. Believe it or not, this game actually has left me uncomfortable about my deck. Like it or not, this entire game was solely won on the power of Astrobiotics. Everything that led to me getting 7 points so quickly is present in every standard Astrobiotics deck. You have Astro Script into Sand, you have Sweet Sweep for the first turn early cash, you have Wrap Round to block the scoring remote so you can score the big view, and yeah, Sand City Grid, Biotic Label, finish things off. And Astro Script token, of course. My deck isn't really all that special. None of the currents came into play. Newshound was an annoying sentry, but regular Astrobiotics has the same, be it Architect or Ichi 1.0. It played out very much like Astrobiotics deck this game. And that could be a good thing. It means that it's landing on the power of Astrobiotics. But on the same token, you have to ask yourself, why not just play standard NEH Astrobiotics instead? Another big thing to consider was that I won with just 3 agendas this game. A usual game would have me scoring 4 agendas, including a 2-1 agenda. Without the 3-point view, the game would have dragged on longer, and I could have lost to R&D lock. I wasn't going to keep him out with a single toll booth, given that he was running Torch. So I'm really wondering, is there anything I can do to my deck to make it stand out even more? Or is this as good as it gets? Because this really is just a subset of Astrobiotics. Instead of 2 Biotic Labels, I'm only running 1. Instead of 6 Operation Economy, I'm only running Sweet Sweep without Hedge Fund. And yeah, it's basically Astrobiotics but with a lower chance of scoring out that first Astro early on. And that could be a disaster. One of the biggest reasons why I won that game was because of the turn 2 Astro. You cannot underestimate how important it was. The moment he got an SMC or Clot out, getting that first Astro is going to be so much harder. And I felt it that game, I really did. If not for the fact that he ran out of recursion for Clot, I would have been in a lot of trouble that game. So I don't know. What do you think I could do to improve my deck? What do you think I should do? Do you think I should just go play Astrobiotics instead? Or is there something about this deck that could be improved? Leave your comments in the comment section below. I would love to hear from you. In the meantime, thanks for watching. Happy net running. Goodbye.